So I've just been listening to this woman who thinks that the police department just went with Chris Watts' guilty plea. That's not true at all. The CBI agents and the police knew that Chris Watts killed his family. And one of the reasons how they knew he did it was because he failed the lie detector test. He flunked the polygraph as bad as you can flunk it. But even before that, they knew he was lying because the CBI are trained in detecting deceit in people. Even after he admitted to killing his wife, they still didn't believe him when he tried to make up the story that Shanann killed her daughters, which was another lie he told, on top of the many. The first lie he told was that he didn't know where his family were. Innocent people don't tell as many lies as Chris Watts did. And he still probably hasn't told the full truth. He's a liar. People actually underestimate how evil Chris Watts actually is. And they also overlook the fact that he was the only one with a motive. His family were costing him too much money. He couldn't afford his family. He couldn't even afford the house that he was living in. They were drowning in debt. Chris was the one leading a double life. Chris was the one having an affair. Chris was the one withdrawing affection leading up to the murder. Chris was the one who didn't want to be in the marriage. A divorce would have left him penniless, and that's the simple truth. He couldn't get what he wanted without getting rid of his family. He wasn't prepared to leave that marriage as a failure. This is a man who was raised by a very narcissistic mother who valued her son for his achievements in academics and in sports. So the concept of being a failure for him was inconceivable. Now, lots of people believe that Nicole Kessinger is the sole reason why he killed his family. That's only part of it. Yes, I believe she was the catalyst, but the other side that people don't see is that there was no way he could have exited that marriage and survived. No way. The concept that Nicole Kessinger was involved is getting really worn, tired, and old. There's simply no proof to back that up. Whether you believe she's involved or not is your choice, but there simply is not a shred of evidence against her. And for a certain creator to continue hounding her and making up false claims and theories is very wrong. The truth of the matter is the Chris Watts case has been solved. No YouTube creator solved this case. Anyone who saw the footage of Chris backing his truck up into the garage on the night or morning of the murders, anyone who saw him watching himself on Nate's camera, putting his hands on his head as he saw himself knowing he was screwed, anyone who watched the interrogation, he told so many lies. No innocent person would tell that many lies. Now, his family have tried to destroy Shanann's reputation behind the scenes. They've worked with 2 channels and continued in trying to drag Shanann's name through the mud. Cindy Watts actually believes her son was railroaded. She believes he's completely innocent and projects blame completely onto Shanann. And actually, the Watts tried to get a lawyer to start an appeal process. The Watts family don't seem to understand that he's never getting out, and that Shanann and the girls are actually the victims. Cindy Watts thinks her son is the victim and she has no compassion for Shanann or her family whatsoever. When you understand that Chris Watts was raised by this very narcissistic woman, raised in a very narcissistic environment, because I think actually that both his parents are narcissists, it just so happens that Cindy's the more vocal with her narcissism. You can understand why he turned out the way he did. His mother put him on a pedestal. She made him out to be this perfect guy, and he could never live up to that. He was never able to be himself. He'd been raised to behave in a way that he thought was expected. Growing up, he did things to please and to appease his mother. And then when he married Shanann, he did whatever it was to please his wife, and his mother resented that. When he got involved with Nicole is when he actually started to come out of his shell. NK made him feel valued for who he was, made him feel special for who he was. And he was finally doing something to please himself for his own gratification. And he began to devalue his marriage. He felt trapped in that marriage. He saw no other way out. There is simply no motive for anyone else to have done this. It wasn't the Spanish lady. It wasn't NK's friend. It wasn't a stranger. The conspiracy theories are all one big hoax to rule you in. The case has been solved, and that's the truth. The conspiracy theories keep the yarn spinning, keep people on a twisted roller coaster ride that might be exciting for someone who's bored. But this case is a tragedy, and a certain creator has tried to turn it into an entertaining murder mystery. There is no mystery here. Chris Watts is not the first man to have killed his family, and he won't be the last. And to the Watts family, he's never getting out, and the case has been solved. It will be interesting to see how over the next few years, whether or not Chris Watts will actually make it. I personally don't care for him to make it. I think he's among the worst of the worst. I think he's a waste of taxpayers' money. It really was his fear of failing that tipped him over the edge. His family no longer served his purpose. What happened was the final discard of a family he no longer wanted. They were a burden, an obstacle in the way of ultimately getting what he wanted. I'm sad that it's the 2-year anniversary of Shanann, Bella and Cece's death. They had a right to live. They had a right to grow up and go to school. Shanann loved those children, and there is absolutely no way she would have done anything to harm those girls. Shanann was half Italian. For Italians, family are everything. Shanann was very invested in her children. She loved them. She included them in a lot of her online videos. I'm sure they got on her nerves sometimes. I mean, kids are kids, and sometimes kids are not always well behaved, or, being a mother can be stressful. But she had 2 beautiful, amazing children. And this idea that she would harm them, a story that Chris Watts made up because the CBI agents put the idea into his head and he fell into the trap. The concept that she would do anything to harm her children is just completely and utterly bogus. Shanann and her daughters need to be remembered. The hatred, these hate channels that are out there for Shanann need to be, taken off the scene. I know the Watts are behind these channels. I know the Watts are behind trying to create this narrative that Shanann was harming her children. Shanann would never hurt those children. She loved them with all her heart. And, Chris Watts, it doesn't matter what stories you make up about Shanann, it's not going to make it any better for Chris Watts, because the vast majority of people believe that he did it. And the most important thing is that he is behind bars, and there's actually no way that he's ever going to get out. So you can spin all the stories, all the yarns about Shanann that you want, but Chris Watts ultimately won't see the light of day again. He will be behind bars for the rest of his life. So continuing to spin these narratives, these false narratives about Shanann, and for this one creator to continue to spin these false narratives about others involved, the only person that was involved in this really is Chris Watts, and he was the only person that had the motive.